All right, hold on to your seats because we have got a scandal that is so perfectly Westminster, so deliciously murky, so absolutely dripping with cover-up allegations and shadowy dealings that it makes House of Cards look like a documentary about a village fete. Keir Starmer, our beloved Prime Minister who promised transparency, integrity, and a new kind of politics, is now facing explosive claims of a cover-up involving none other than Peter Mandelson and a collection of papers that apparently contain information someone really does not want you to see. We are talking about documents that have mysteriously gone missing, questions that are not being answered, and a wall of silence from number 10 that is so impenetrable it would make a medieval fortress jealous. The opposition is screaming cover-up, journalists are digging like their careers depend on it, and Starmer is looking more uncomfortable than a vegetarian at a steakhouse. This is political scandal at its absolute finest, and it is unfolding right now in real time. If you love political intrigue that rivals the best spy thrillers and want to stay on top of every twist in this absolutely bonkers story, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, because what comes next is going to be absolutely wild, and you do not want to miss a single second. So let us start with the basics, because this scandal has more layers than a particularly ambitious lasagna. Peter Mandelson, as we have discussed before, is the Prince of Darkness, the architect of New Labour, the man who has survived more political scandals than most people have had hot breakfasts. He has been around Westminster for decades, accumulating connections, influence, and presumably a filing cabinet full of secrets that would make WikiLeaks blush. Now, there are papers, documents, files, call them what you will, that allegedly contain information about Mandelson's activities, his connections, his dealings, things that could be politically explosive if they ever saw the light of day. The exact contents of these papers are conveniently somewhat unclear because nobody seems willing or able to actually show them to anyone. This is where the cover-up allegations start getting really juicy. Multiple Freedom of Information requests have been filed asking for access to these documents. Journalists have been digging, opposition MPs have been asking questions in Parliament, transparency campaigners have been demanding answers, and the response from the government? Radio silence, deflection, vague references to security concerns or legal restrictions, or any number of other excuses that conveniently mean the papers stay hidden away where nobody can see what is actually in them. Now here is where Starmer comes into this delicious mess. As Prime Minister, he has the authority to release these papers, or at least to order a proper investigation into what they contain and why they are being kept secret, but he's not doing that. Instead, he is stonewalling, he is deflecting, he is doing everything possible to avoid addressing the substance of the allegations. And when a politician goes to such extraordinary lengths to avoid transparency, it naturally raises the question, what exactly are they hiding? What could possibly be in these papers that is so damaging, so explosive, so politically toxic that it is worth taking the hit to their reputation for transparency rather than just releasing them? The opposition has absolutely seized on this, as you might imagine. Conservative MPs are standing up in Parliament daily, asking pointed questions about the Mandelson papers. What is in them? Why are they being kept secret? What is the government afraid of people finding out? And they are not getting answers, which just makes them ask louder and more insistently. It's like watching someone refuse to open a box while insisting there's nothing interesting inside. If there's really nothing to hide, why not just open the box and prove it? The fact that they won't is more damaging than whatever might actually be in there, because it allows everyone's imagination to run wild with possibilities. Reform UK has been particularly vocal about this scandal, with Nigel Farage calling it proof that Labour is just as corrupt and secretive as the governments they used to criticize. He points out, quite correctly, that Starmer spent years demanding transparency from conservative governments, using freedom of information laws to dig up embarrassing information, positioning himself as a champion of openness and accountability. And now that he's in power, suddenly transparency is not quite so important anymore.
The hypocrisy is absolutely glaring, and Farage is making sure everyone knows about it at every available opportunity. But let us dig into what these papers might actually contain, because the speculation is absolutely fascinating. Some reports suggest they involve Mandelson's business dealings, his connections to wealthy foreign individuals and corporations, potentially problematic relationships that could raise questions about conflicts of interest. Other reports hint at communications between Mandelson and senior labor figures during crucial decision-making periods, conversations that might reveal the real motivations behind certain policies or appointments. There's even speculation about connections to foreign governments, to business interests that benefited from government decisions, to the kind of backroom dealing that the public absolutely hates, but which seems to be standard operating procedure in Westminster. The timing of this cover-up is particularly suspicious as well. These allegations are emerging just as Starmer is already dealing with the fallout from Mandelson's controversial appointment, just as questions are being raised about the government's integrity and judgment. It's like watching someone caught in one scandal immediately be confronted with evidence of another bigger scandal. The optics could not be worse if they were deliberately trying to look guilty. And yet the government persists in refusing to release the papers, or even to adequately explain why they cannot be released. What makes this whole situation even more infuriating for transparency advocates is that we're not talking about genuine national security secrets here. Nobody is asking for the nuclear codes or the location of MI6 safe houses. We're talking about papers relating to a politician's conduct and connections, information that the public has a legitimate right to know about, especially when that politician has been given a position of influence in the current government. The national security excuse that keeps getting trotted out whenever someone asks about the papers is so transparently thin you could read a newspaper through it. The media has been absolutely relentless in pursuing this story, and credit to them, because this is exactly the kind of thing journalism is supposed to do. They have been filing freedom of information requests, they have been cultivating sources, they have been piecing together fragments of information to build a picture of what might be going on. And what is emerging is a story of systematic obstruction, of civil servants being ordered not to cooperate with information requests, of documents mysteriously becoming classified or going missing, of a government that is clearly terrified of what might come out if proper scrutiny is applied. One particularly damning aspect of this scandal is the timeline. It appears that some of these papers were readily available and could have been released under normal freedom of information procedures, but then, conveniently, right around the time Mandelson's appointment was being considered, they suddenly became classified or restricted or otherwise unavailable. The coincidence is so blatant it's almost insulting. It suggests a deliberate effort to hide information that might have prevented or complicated Mandelson's appointment, which raises even more questions about what exactly Starmer knew and when he knew it. The legal implications of this potential cover-up are significant as well. If it can be proven that documents were deliberately hidden or destroyed to prevent legitimate scrutiny, that's potentially criminal behavior. Freedom of information laws exist for a reason, and circumventing them is not just politically problematic, it could be illegal. Opposition MPs are already calling for an independent investigation, for a proper inquiry with the power to compel evidence and testimony, for genuine accountability rather than the government investigating itself and inevitably finding no wrongdoing. What is particularly galling about this whole situation is the sheer brazenness of it. Starmer isn't even really trying to hide that he's hiding things. He's just betting that he can weather the political storm, that eventually people will get bored and move on to the next scandal, that he can outlast the criticism without actually addressing the substance of the allegations. It's governance by attrition, the political equivalent of a child putting their fingers in their ears and shouting until the uncomfortable questions stop. Except this isn't a child, this is the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and the questions are not going to stop. The public reaction to all of this has been predictably furious. People are sick and tired of politicians who promise transparency and deliver opacity. They are fed up with being told to trust the government, while the government refuses to provide any evidence that they should be trusted. They are absolutely done with scandals being swept under the carpet and cover-ups being treated as standard operating procedure. Every poll shows trust in politicians at historic lows, and scandals like this one are exactly why. When the people running the country can't even be bothered to pretend they're being honest anymore, democracy itself starts to break down. Social media has been absolutely brutal about this scandal, with people pointing out the obvious hypocrisy, creating memes about what might be in the secret papers, and generally expressing their disgust at yet another example of politicians behaving like they're above the rules that apply to everyone else. The hashtags are trending, the outrage is genuine, and the political damage is mounting by the day. This is not going away, no matter how much Starmer might wish it would. There's also